All right. Apologies if you watched the last stream. I had a couple of technical difficulties. Excuse me. My mute button didn't work just there. That was something I was. All right. My two main focuses this stream are the mute button and making sure none of my windows are covered. So we're just going to do some break design again, like in the first stream, but I'm going to talk a little bit more. And none of my windows are going to be covered like that one. Yeah, and this one. Yep. Okay, that's way better. So we'll act like that last stream didn't even happen. What I'm going to do here is layer some drums to create my own breaks, which I will then bounce into a long wave that will get auto chopped in a template to then become a battery patch that I can then use either in a production project or a live PA project. Because I have to kind of approach those two things differently. For example, in a live PA battery patch, I need to have round robins enabled to where every time I hit a trigger, it doesn't play the same sample consecutively. Whereas in a production patch, I don't need that. In a production patch, I'd rather have each velocity layer trigger a specific hit from the library. And I want that to be replicatable, to where I know, okay, 100 velocity sounds good on this ghost. I want to be able to return to that later. Anyway, long story short, going to be adding a different addictive drums instance for the kick, snare, hat, and ghost, and then another one for the toms, the flexies, and everything else, which is pretty much just the crashes and the rides. The advantage to doing it that way, there's two reasons to do it that way. First is that I love Cubase, and it has an inherent limitation with how many places it can send MIDI data from one event. So an easy way around that is to just have a different instance of addictive drums for each instrument. But the bonus there is that you also get the control over the overheads and the room microphones for each instance. So like, before I was doing this, I would have to do some tricky side chaining to where the overheads in the room would blow up when the snare hit, but not so much when, for example, the ghost hit or something else hit. And if you're using one instance of addictive drums, I could be wrong about this, but I don't believe Superior Drummer does that either. I don't think you can get an individual room and overhead for each individual hit. If I'm wrong about that, please correct me in the comments. I've never owned Superior Drummer. I started off on addictive drums, and I've just stayed with it because I've never had the extra budget to just buy Superior Drummer. But if that's the case there as well, I do recommend just doing it this way, because during the break design process, it's the same logic behind creating a fresh project for sound design in general. Is that, first of all, you're not limited with your CPU. You can push your CPU as far as you want, but also you can do a lot of clever, weird layering stuff to where it can be automated at that level. And then when you bounce out a multi-sample library from that, you never have to deal with that stuff again. And that may sound kind of vague, but you can apply this logic to all kinds of things. And with addictive drums specifically, I have a pipeline already constructed to where I'll create a good break through layering, and then I'll bounce that out and auto chop it, and then have that as a battery patch. But you can also do that with things like basses and, you know, any sound. You can do this complex layering and all this weird, all this weird rule based, what would you call that? There's a word for that. Expression within the sound. And then bounce out a multi-velocity layered library from it. And with Addictive Drums, I have the self-chopping template laid out, but there's an MPC soft sampler made by Akai that actually lets you do a multi-layer. There's a phrase for this I can't think of, but like you can bounce out a library from a VST with multiple velocity layers. So you can say like, hey, bounce me out like a C1, a C2, a C3, a C4, a C5, you know, with 20 velocity, you know, 10 velocity, 20 velocity, 30 velocity, etc. Doing a terrible job explaining that, but you can get really elaborate with creating a patch within an instrument or versatile instrument and layer it with as many different things as you want, and then you can create a template where you bounce out a multi-velocity patch of that sound and then bring that back into a sampler to where as you hit different velocities it triggers different, you know, layers within that library. And approaching creating sample libraries that way has really opened up, especially for me with breaks, because there's just so much involved in them. Getting a self-designed break to a point where it's just a battery patch is the most satisfying thing ever, because once you have a bunch of battery patches of just awesome processed breaks that you've made, when you're trying to come up with a song, you can just load up one of these patches and immediately have like a legit sounding awesome processed break that you can speed up, slow down, process however you want. All right, enough talking. Sorry, it's been a really long day and I'm having to repeat my inaugural stream, so bear with me. Ludwig. I love that, but it's too high. And I don't know if I want to pitch it down that much. But I do, so that sounds great. So again, excuse me, I'm using a separate Addictive Drum instance for the kick, snare, hat, and ghost. And then that way I'll have separate overheads and rooms for each of those four. Yeah, Ludwig. I'm going to treat this like the first video. So one disadvantage of having the snare and the ghost separate is that obviously anytime you do any major changes to the snare, like pitch, for example, you're probably going to want to do the same thing to the ghost. Yeah, I hate doing this part. I need to have. I've at one point I even made like template MIDI chunks like this, but it ended up taking longer than just doing it this way. Sorry. I after doing the last video, I probably did a lot of presupposition stuff that I'm not doing now. The pattern doesn't matter right now at all. I'm layering all these drum sounds, and then I'm going to bounce out one shots and velocity layers for every instrument. So the pattern could not matter less outside of creating a vibe that I want to like push the timbre into. So forgive the simplicity and the idiocy of the pattern, and it's going to be repetitive for a while, but we're literally just stacking for timbre. And then now I need to create the multiple outs from each instance so that we have an individual channel for every instrument and mic. I do have a standardized coloring for everything. Here, I can show you what it is in case you didn't watch the last one. You can pause it there. I've been using this for years, and it helps a lot. So now what I'm going to do is mute all of the microphones and all the room mics, and then just deal with the direct mics, get those fat, and then layer synthetic layers on the kick and the snare and get kind of the full direct kit going, and then add the room and overhead mics, and then probably some noise layers, at least on the snare, and then we'll bounce it all out. So Cubase has a limitation as far as how many places a MIDI event can send MIDI data. So that's part of the reason why I developed this method to begin with. But I have to create a MIDI channel and then effectively use MIDI sends to send any extraneous stuff to things like Kick2 or LFO Tool, etc. So I'll usually just start with a wave shaper out the gate and try to like blow it the hell up and then pull back a little bit and then EQ out whatever I don't want, and then usually like some saturation or other distortion to kind of flatten it out a little bit, and then EQ it a little bit more. It's usually just pretty much that, at least on the directs, just to keep it kind of clean and get everything up to level, etc. And that's a lot of tail for a direct mic. What I'm going to do on the directs and the overhead and the room is blow them up. And I say that way because what it's going to do is make the tails super blown up. And that's fine. What I'm looking for is kind of layers that can be blown up and become part of the body of the snare, meaning like it'll contribute to the first 30 to 200 milliseconds of the snare, but not after that, not contribute to the tail and have this crazy huge reverb afterwards. So on the direct and the room and the overhead, I'm going to blow them up a bit and then use an LFO tool to take out everything that I don't want, which is usually going to be the tail, at least at this phase. This kick has a lot of information. So I'm just using a MIDI send, like I said before. A lot of this is specific to Cubase. You can do it a lot of different ways in different DAWs, but essentially I'm just sending the same MIDI information that's triggering the addictive drum kick to LFO tool that's acting on the direct mic of that kick. And then we'll do it also for the other mics later. And there's specific settings in LFO tool you need to have here, like that envelope and whatnot, but I'm just, assuming you already know that. Hey, thank you, Everblue. Sorry, I need to come up with a chat ding message. I'm not seeing these when they come in. I don't know how long ago that message was, but thank you, Everblue. Appreciate the kind words. Man, there's not normally this much tail on these direct signals. Like this one, this kick is particularly busy. I love the very, very beginning, but the mid and the end, bleh. I think that's okay. We're going to layer sine under it anyway. Dude, this whole kit has a lot of weird. I guess it's just because it's a Ludwig. It just rings true. My first drum kit was a Ludwig. You can't fuck with Ludwig. Something that is barely worth mentioning but is interesting to me is that depending on what the source material is, sometimes I'll approach from the bottom up and the top down. I don't know what it is, but with snares, I usually go top down, but with kicks, a lot of time will go bottom up. It's weird. Because, like, I guess it just depends on what you want to be the focal, like, your starting point in the processing, like, as in the ranges that you choose to blow up first are going to dictate the decisions that you make down the line. And it's interesting. I just noticed haphazardly that I was doing it differently depending on what sound. Like, especially with snares, for some reason I start with the high and then move my way down, but I don't do that with every sound. So that's kind of an interesting thing to think about, because especially with this process where you're blowing stuff up and then balancing after blowing up, you know, where you start blowing it up will totally, you know, that's a cascade effect down the chain. So it's just kind of interesting to be aware of that. You know, I could start there or I could start here. But for some reason, to me, that's not vibey. You know, I think that's why I do it this way, especially on snares, is that blowing up the lows first, it just sounds weird. It doesn't. It's like if I'm only listening to the transient, yeah, I can hear the potential. I think that's what it comes down to, is being able to hear the potential. I think that's a lot of production, is being able to hear where it can go. And like, starting there on the low end, like, I can kind of hear where that could go. It almost gets pigeonholed really quickly. Whereas if I blow up the highs first, it's almost like you can color it without changing the body. You know what I mean? Like, I think for some reason with snares, I think starting from the top down is easier. I think it also helps you start to make decisions about how much of the tail is going to be there. And, you know, I think that's where it comes. It's like you're kind of just knocking on a few different doors. Like, how far can we go in this direction? How come? And that's easier to do in this range for me anyway. I think I'm going to do the thing where I blow it up. I don't try to control the tail here. I think I'm just going to blow it the hell up and then take the tail off manually with an envelope afterwards. I think both methods can work great. Let me turn off alternate hits really quick. See, so now that the top half, sorry to keep hammering the same point, but now that top half is, or not half, but, you know, now that the top is dialed, it's way easier to feel where the fundamental is supposed to go. It's not the fundamental, but you know what I mean. Yeah, like it doesn't need a lot of the low, just like the very first part, and that's it. What would be really baller would be to have within this plug the ability to do like a different amplitude envelope for both of these. But whatever. That would require like forget I said that. I just said that was like one of the dumbest things I've ever said. I've had a long day. All right, that's fine. I don't want to move on though before shortening it, so I'm going to shorten it right now. It's kind of tough. Like this is kind of a new method for me, is doing it this way, like kind of blowing it way up and getting a huge tail and then pulling it back a little bit. But like we still have other layers to add in here, like a noise layer. We can add the overheads in room. Like this is literally just the direct, which is like 1/4 of the equation. So it doesn't have to be perfect. Like the tail doesn't have to release in exactly the right way yet. We can, it's going to be part of a group. It's more about like keeping it natural while hyped, I guess. And emphasizing the important parts. I don't like that shape, but it sounds good. I think that's a good sign when you're using a shape you would never ever use. Like I don't think I've ever used that type of shape before, but it's working here. So I'm not going to worry about the overhead and room yet. Let's just get the direct styled, and then we'll add the synthetic layers. I mentioned it in the first video. Sorry, I wasn't muted there. When I forget to mute it, you're going to hear an echo, and I apologize for that. So I mentioned it in the first video, but with layers like this, especially like ones that are going to lie mostly in the mids, I found it can be really useful as a starting point with EQ to try to get it as flat as possible first. And not necessarily for sounds that exist in the mid-range, but even just the mid-range here on any sound that has a lot of presence there or a lot of information there. It just helps later on down the line when you're doing actual mixing, to have that section kind of flattened out already, because then you can carve into it in really simple ways. Like, you don't have to mess with the mud, for lack of a better word, like, because that's usually what you're doing in this range, is dealing with mud. But if it's all just a flat line, it makes it more about balance and less about mud and not mud. That's a horrible explanation, but that's as good as I can do as far as like how my brain is approaching it now. Like, you'd almost never want to add there. You know what I mean? That's what I'm saying. It's like, if you think about it in terms of mud, you're gonna resist doing this. But like, in terms of just keeping things flat, God, I was muted that whole time. Fuck. Hopefully that's the first of this stream. I was just explaining how I like to make the mids as flat as possible, as early as possible, so that they can then be easily carved out later. So I don't want to take that out of this one. A lot of times I would, but I actually really like that. It's just not how long it is. So I'm going to do some multi-band envelope shaping, just to take down the release on this range on the hat here. I'm not even going to fuck with the EQ. I'm just going to do that. You can hear that pretty clearly where down here it allows the tail on the highs, but if I move this up, the tails on the highs start disappearing. And that's fine, that's plenty. Try not to be too meticulous at this stage. Especially with hi-hats, because like sometimes you'll end up like pitch shifting them and doing all kinds of weird stuff later that will completely change the timbre anyway. Way more so than, cymbals are way more malleable, so I try not to worry so much. Cool. I'm thing that excites me the most about this break so far is the really weird, like that has a lot of clappiness to it, which I'm not used to, which is kind of cool. And we can probably shorten that tail a little bit more, but I'm really curious to hear what happens when we blow up the overhead in the room on that, in conjunction. We might be able to get a really cool, like, clap kind of West Coast sound out of that. I try to keep ghosts, like, especially having this ghost layer totally separate. Like, this is its own instance of addictive drums, and one of the main advantages to that is being able to not blow up the ghost even remotely as much as you do the main snare. So usually I will copy over, like if I did any serious EQ on the direct or on the main snare, I should say. This is worth copying over. Just to make sure there's cohesion and character, But then, for example, with the Ghost, we probably don't need this boost up here. God damn it, I was muted again. I was just saying on Ghost Strokes, you can get away with, you usually want them to be a little bit dimmer. Like Ghost Strokes typically are not only quieter and shorter, but dimmer as well. But also, when you have your main snare processed and the end result is this huge full spectrum thing, sometimes you want your Ghost Strokes to actually even be a little bit more breathy and airy than the main snares so that they stick out a little bit more above the other stuff. I don't know, I'm getting a little esoteric here, but the difference between how you process Ghost Strokes and the main snares to me is one of the coolest, interesting parts of like break design, because you can really go nerdy with it and get like a really cool interplay and contrast between them. So like right now, obviously there's the length of the ghosts are keeping them from being definable. Like that's a bigger contrast than I would normally do, but I think it will work well here because of how clappy the main snare is. So like the less clappy the ghosts are, I think the cooler the interplay will be. Cool. I actually think I like this even more than the break on the first stream, just because of how contrasty the snare and the ghosts are. Like there's a lot of character there on the highs, which is all I'm going for at this stage. Like there's going to be so much added to this, like new fundamentals from the synthetic layers, and then new character and tail from the room mics and stuff. So having like this much character with just the directs, I think is really a great starting point, because we can always, sidechain everything we add and duck this to that, later. So now the hat is a little bit too long for the ghosts for me, but I'm not gonna mess with it right now, because first of all, I'm almost definitely gonna pitch up the entire, like all of these hits. Once they're bounced and brought back in as a battery patch, they're gonna all be pitched up anyway, and the hats may be pitched totally different. And they're invariably gonna be shorter. I have gone to great lengths in the past to have a short closed hi-hat and a long open hi-hat. I've gone as far as to create a totally different Addictive Drums instance for the open hi-hats as opposed to the closed ones, just so that you can really get the envelope really dialed on the closed ones, and then not have an envelope on the open ones, or obviously have just a full sustain or whatnot. The one thing you don't want to do is limit yourself to only the closed hats by having an envelope that is a short envelope that goes over your whole hat signal chain, to where it's shortening the overheads in the rooms and the direct on the hat, because then when you open it up, it's not gonna, obviously that won't work. In this case, I'm not gonna do that. But you can use velocity to do that. At least in Cubase, it's cool. There are velocity filters that you can use in these MIDI sends, to where you can send velocities 0 through 100 over here, and velocities 101 through 127 over here. And that's usually where I split it up. I'll go like 0 to 100 will be non-main hits, and then anything above 100, anything 101 and above is for a main hit. And you can separate those to where they're going to different signal chains, and that can be really nice for creating kind of two inherent versions of the same sound, like one that's for the main hits and then another one that's for the accents, and you can send those to two totally different places and process them totally differently. I've gotten really, really great results doing that to things like even cymbals and hi-hats and whatever, but you do have to be selective with where you apply that, because there can be a huge time sink, obviously. So I brought that up because the hats have too much tail here and there's too much on them, but I don't want to mess with that right now, because I don't want to have to go down that rabbit hole of having a separate signal chain for short hats as there is for long hats, if that makes sense, or open and closed rather. Okay, I'm gonna hit the head really quick, and then I'll come back and we'll add the other layers. I think I'm going even slower this time than I did last stream. Nope, we're going faster. Okay, good. Quick break. Be right back. All right. Sorry for all the throat clears. I've had a frog in my throat for like the last 2 hours. Perfect timing. So the snare there still has too much tail on it for me. I got to shorten it because if I don't, I feel like there's no room for the overheads or the room. I'm going to save this though. I'm going to A/B it because I really like the way this turned out. Like it actually falls off naturally, but it's still just slightly too long. So subtle, but it makes such a big difference. Like it's almost like, well, are you going to include the room or no? Because there is still some room recorded on the direct mics, you know. That's fine. That's at least a little better than I think part of it is how much of the snare tail carries into the first set of ghost strokes, which of course is going to be pattern dependent later. Usually comes down to like an eighth note. Like if something is way longer than an eighth note, you know, if the snare tail goes all the way to here and the ghost strokes are here, you know, you're going to get some overlap and you may not want that. Cool. This is actually not bad. It's just way wet for this stage. Like normally at this stage, when you're just dealing with the directs, it's not going to sound this blown up. But interesting approach. We'll see where that goes. So now just adding the synthetic layers. So as I mentioned in the other video, I'm trying to spend less and less time on this exact part because it's diminishing returns after a while, but also it's one of those things where for me, for some reason, I hit the sweet spot early and then I lose it and then never get it back. So it's like if I can get it in the first minute or two, it's golden. But if I don't, I almost have to like delete it and start over. Because I'll just go down the wrong path for like 10 minutes and it, you know. So this sounds good. The main rule I have is just like, this is a supportive layer. It's for reinforcement. So as long as the character of the acoustic layer is not being compromised and it's only being reinforced, even if this disappears in my head, that's even better. Like, it's almost like I want this layer to not really be audible. I want this to only be enhancing the acoustic layer. Because once it's in there, we can blow it up later. Like, we can make this layer take over later if we want. Right now, I just want it to fit the acoustic layer. So the acoustic layer needs to stay the focus. It's almost like when you're DJing, you got to keep the house the focus. Like, your cue always needs to be secondary. Your main focus needs to be the house. I am already liking where this is going, though, to be honest. The hell? So that's something I found that's useful is like you leave the length at default. It can be, it just helps you hear the fundamental and then tune it there. Like tune it roughly first and then shrink it and it makes it so much easier. Like I like that already, so I'm gonna A/B it so that I don't lose my place here. Yeah, see, and it's like right out the gate, I'm getting a sense that I'm not gonna improve on that. So I'm gonna back up and move on. Yeah, like that's great. I'm telling you, the less time you have to spend on that part, the better. At least for me. Sweet. Yeah, that like I feel like I just saved 20 minutes of so much needless knob tweaking there. Yeah, this actually sounds legit. Okay, all right. Sorry. Okay, so before adding the mics, I'm going to address the loudness really quick. Sorry, I have to keep OBS on the screen so I can see when my vocal mic is muted or not. So, Vision 4X is the bomb diggy higgy, if only just for the oscilloscope with the headroom function, so you can see where it's clipping. So, like, it just makes mixing at Unity so easy. You can just try to keep everything right at 0, and when you see it go over 0, you know what you need to handle, and you can just handle it. It's been the biggest mixing breakthrough I've ever had by far, is just this one tool and using it that way. So I'm just going to group these together and then just soft clip them and or just saturate and hard clip them so that they stay at 0 without losing their character. So that's not even hitting 0, which I'm okay with because we haven't added the microphones yet, or I'm sorry, the room microphones yet. I just kind of like starting it at this point, starting this as early as possible, just to keep a handle on where stuff is stacking up and masking, etc. But I'm looking up here, I'm just, obviously the kick's fine now. Now I just need to do the same thing to the snare. It's my alarm. Just plays a playlist of random Noisia songs. I am a Noisia fanboy. Yes, I fucking am. Especially 2003 to 2005. It's the most flawless drum and bass you'll ever hear. And I like using this one for it just because I kind of have a handle of like the sweet spots. Like you can usually do up to about 50% saturation here without losing a lot of character. Then a few notches on the pent and triodes, and then almost exclusively, I'm not exclusively, but I mean just in my experience, I usually end up having to like attenuate a few dB on the output. And I mentioned it in the other video, but like I'm really a huge fan of working this way. I used to fiddle with fader knobs a lot, and watching Nick from Noisia's Patreon videos and noticing that he never ever touches those, like he'll get the signal at the level he wants through the different inserts and whatnot, and then if there's like a major level adjustment, he'll do it there. And I don't know what his reasoning is there, but I've already noticed multiple advantages to working that way, not the least of which is just not picking at it. It just kind of helps you commit to a level, and then you work around that moving forward instead of constantly second guessing it. Anyway, mission accomplished. There's not a lot of red here, and that's all I was going for. We're going to still add the room and overheads, but I just wanted kind of a baseline to mix it unity to where this is all hitting generally at 0. Okay, now we can add the other microphones. Okay, I'm confused. Did I really not do this earlier? Oh, I guess not. But that means I'm just going to have to move whatever I had on here over to here. Yeah. Okay, that's my bad. I just didn't split the outputs before doing the processing, but I'll just have to move these 3 to this channel. tripping? What the hell? This should be outputting right here. Or right here. Oh man, I really hope I didn't. Sometimes Cubase gets really temperamental with multiple outputs off of a VST, so I hope I didn't screw this up. I may have to close it and reload it. Yeah, this is for sure supposed to be coming out of this channel, and it's not. Boo. Oh, that sucks. I wish I'd have done that in the beginning. I don't know if I remove this channel, it'll lose these inserts. Like, I'm thinking that might fix it. Like, to kick this back on, like maybe Cubase doesn't realize that this channel's on. Yay, technical problems. Okay, I figured it out. It is working, but when I moved the LFO tool, the MIDI send got reset. There we go. We're good now. Sorry about that. Man, I don't even want to do that much to these. They sound pretty good already. Yeah, they're just too long, but they sound great. Like, I'm probably barely going to need to do anything. Definitely won't need to do a lot of EQing, I don't think. And I mean, that wouldn't apply to most things, what I just said, because I like over EQing stuff because it helps you imprint your signature sound on stuff. But for this is just a room mic, overhead mic. So like, I guess the decision I was making there was, do I want to make the interest in the overhead mic the focus? Like, do I want to blow that up and make that part of the character, or is it more of a supportive layer to the direct? And I think in this case, I think it should be more of a supportive layer, where sometimes I'll blow up the overheads to make it more... so tempting to do that sometimes and then just chop the tail off so you get that power. in the body, but not in the tail. But that's what I'm choosing not to do here, is that I don't want to blow this up so much. I just want to make it kind of fit. Not a lot going on. I forgot to mute myself, sorry. Not a lot going on in these overheads, so I'm not worried about it. This is where having a different instance for each instrument comes in really handy, because I'm already using up all 4 MIDI sends just for the kick. One for the synthetic layer, and then one for the overhead envelope, and one for the room envelope, and right there, that's all 4. So funny. I never tire of when you're working on an element that's soloed and you haven't unsoloed it in a while, and you're only focused on making that one element sound good, but then you unsolo it and then it mixes like 10 times better with everything else. I love that. Like, that's great. That's exactly what I was hoping for. Taming these extra mics, like the initial hit of the kick comes right through, but then nothing else, nothing extraneous that isn't needed does, which is nice. So now I'm just going to try to do the exact same thing with the snare. I did the same thing. I forgot to split it out earlier. That's my bad. Yeah, I'm going to need to reassign the LFO tool. Okay, mental note, never to do it this way ever again. Weirdly not a fan of how the overhead mic sounds on this layer. We may keep this layer kind of down low. We'll blow it up a little bit, but then probably cut out most of it. There's just no sweet spot. It just goes from dead to too much. Whatever. Yeah, this overhead layer is just not it. Oh shit, sorry, I forgot to mute myself. You've been hearing an echo. But yeah, there's something about this overhead layer on the snare I'm not about. Man, that's tough. I don't know if it's the length of it or what, but it's just not gelling with the direct. Yeah, that's a little bit better. I guess it just needs to be not as prominent. to try not to worry about it. It sounds okay, and we're going to pitch it up later, guaranteed, so I'm not that worried about it. Something else you might notice is that I'm not paying too much care or attention to the initial click. Like, I'll usually try to get everything to gel and blow it up and process it and whatever and get the transient sounding really good. And then usually at that point you can tell if there's not enough tick or too much and whatnot. I usually just err on the side of less tick, and then if I need to add that extra tick layer, once it's bounced to battery, I can just do effectively the same thing where I'll just add a MIDI check or MIDI send to just trigger like a phase plant sampler or something with a tick on it, or another kick too with a tick on it. Bottom line is, I try to do that last as far as the layering goes. Like, I'll try to get the transient and the body and the tail and everything sounding as natural and good as possible. And then if it doesn't have enough tick, then I may add another tick later. The other way to do that is in kick 2. By default, the amplitude does not have a fast attack. It's pretty slow. So you can, here, let me copy this. Oh shit, that's not, let me copy A to B first. So like right there, that's probably a bit more project ready with the tick in there now. So like right there, that's the difference, and you can usually tell at a certain point, and it doesn't matter when. I don't think it's not that important. Like the tick doesn't need to be processed in the same signal chain as the rest of it. It can totally be a separate sound, and it's so fast that it blends in no matter where you put it. Not no matter where you put it. I just mean like no matter at which point in the process you add it. Yeah, I like that there. That's fine. Sounds way more pronounced though. That the amount of weight that adds to the snare is kind of crazy. Especially considering there's no low end in that sound. That's the mind fuck, is that's all of that is like from 1K up, and it makes it sound like there's more low end. Transients are fucking crazy. Bear with me here. I will be right back. All right. Oh shit, I forgot to mute my mic again. Sorry for the echo. Something worth noting is changing the crossover location radically changes the phase, and sometimes it's a cheat if it doesn't sound like if it sounds like the transient's getting blurred a little bit. Sometimes you can just move the crossover around and the phases will align. It's just like when you invert the polarity and move things forward and backwards in the order of samples. It's just a matter of aligning the phase, but it's kind of like sometimes I've gotten like really crazy, just gone from an okay transient to like an amazing one just by moving the crossover a little bit. So it's something always worth trying. I'm sorry, I keep forgetting to mute my mic. I usually don't go for too much internal side chaining with the overhead mics, but because I guess it's probably just the way that they have the mics set up in the room, to where the overheads are probably just pointed, they're closer, but they're probably also pointed more directly at the heads. Anyway, all I'm trying to say is that what I will usually I will try to dial in the overhead with the direct and kind of get them phase aligned to where the transient is really sharp. But then with the room mics, it's like they're so far away that you can't really do that. It's like there's some pre-delay there almost to where it's like, it's so far behind that it can't be a part of that initial transient anyway. So I will use, long story short, if I can't get the overheads to align with the directs, then I will side chain the overheads a little bit. And by that, I just mean fade them in so that they're not part of the initial attack. But usually I can get those to jive, and then I will do the delayed attack / side chain, whatever you call it, to the room mics, because the room mics are so late anyway. They're not going to, you can't get them aligned on that first part of the transient or the body. It's usually going to be, the end of the body into the tail is where you're going to get the room mic activity. So that's where I'll usually try out a little bit of side chaining just directly here from the envelope, if that makes sense. Sometimes you can cheat and get both, where you can, get a piece of the attack and then also the tail. It just depends. Like there's a good chunk of awesomeness right here, so I'm going to leave that in. It is crazy how big of a difference this is from here. Like this decision and this decision are pretty far apart. Okay. It's a little too much body going into the tail, if that makes sense. On the snare specifically. It's the room for sure. Okay, I'm going to err on wide. I'm going to err on long because we're going to pitch it up anyway, and I don't want to lose the air here because it's really nice. Okay. I don't think I need to do too much to the overheads and rooms of the hat and ghost, so I think we're almost done with this session. So, yeah, we're at an hour and a half. This is usually about how long it takes me to get to a decent place. What I'll typically do after this is then like just make the toms and cymbals really weird and random because I can then pull those out later and swap them between patches in battery. The main thing I want to be unique and cool is the kick, hat, snare, and ghost. And once those are dialed and kind of like they have an identity, then I feel like I can move on, like, because then we can bounce out different iterations of that, different variations with replaced hits and whatnot. So next stream tomorrow, I'll just come back with this, but then also with a bunch of bounced variations where I'm literally just switching out the instrument and then maybe adjusting the EQ or something, but it's not worth, We'll come back with like 5 of these and then we can actually start writing the song and making some bass for it tomorrow, which I'm excited for. I really did do it in the wrong order this time. I didn't do the separate outs in addictive. It's a stupid move on my part. What happened there? I might be tripping, but I swear to God, we just lost something. that's right. I don't know. God, I will trip on stuff like that for so long I have to ignore it. I swear something got lost in the ghost. Okay. Triple mental note, never to ever do it in that order ever again. That sucked. Anyway. I swear we lost something here. Wow, I'm never ever doing that again. I don't think I've ever done that before. I've had to split out addictive drums to multiple outputs like 1,000 times in my life. I don't think I've ever done it in that order, and I'm so glad that's the only time I've ever done that. Never again. Yeah, there's something. The ghost was keeping up with the snare before I did that just there. Oh, you know what it was? It was that the overhead and the room were going through the same channel. That's what it was. So maybe for this, I just don't do that. Can I just do this? And then move them back. I'm just going to undo my own idiocy here. We're going to have to reroute LFO tool for the second time. I think I still am saving time doing this right now. That's how big of an idiot I am. That's right. There we go. That's what it sounds like before. Okay, that's fine. So I think I explained it in this stream, but basically what I do is I just layer, blow up each individual instrument, meaning like the kick, the snare, the hat, the ghost, because the ghosts and the main snares need to be processed differently. But the pattern doesn't matter, and really none of this matters. All that matters is that I have a project where I can dump a template MIDI file into it and bounce that to audio. And the template MIDI file is just this. So it's literally just every single hit that Addictive Drums has split into velocity layers. So once you have this saved or something like this saved that just bounces out each hit the way that you need it, your prerogative when designing is just to get the kit sounding good. It doesn't matter in what way you do it, as long as you can point all the outputs to one place and then bounce it with this MIDI, it'll always get sliced the same way and it'll always fit into your templates later. So, like here, I kind of want to dive a little deeper maybe, but not really. What I'm going to do, because I think I'm pretty much done with what I need to be done effectively. And that's the thing is, like, when I first started doing this method, I would go really deep into You know, if it's not gonna change the character of the sound, it may not even be worth going into that much at this stage when you're just getting a good kit that is balanced and fits well together. Because that's the type of decision making you're gonna do based on what bass it's playing with or what the atmosphere of the tune is, stuff like that. So like you kind of have to keep it not too much in any one direction, if that makes sense. I don't know how to put that, like not dry but malleable. Like you need to keep your options open, so you don't want it to be too sharp, too blatty, too distorted, whatever. And this fits into that to me. Like this could end up being ticky, it could end up being blown up, we could layer it even more. The sounds are defined and they all sound like they're coming from the same place, and they sound like they're coming from the same drum kit, and they don't sound stock. And to me, that's checked off every box I need at this stage. So I'm just going to go ahead and bounce this through my Neve preamps. I have a pair of 1073 ends that I just pump everything through as a front end bus to kind of help stuff gel later. And it also helps, you know, just commit to decisions, like bouncing stuff to audio that way. Just really helps commit to where you move on. God, I hope that window hasn't been there forever. Okay, 2 streams in one day. This one had a lot less mistakes. Still had a bunch, but not as many. I'm just going to bounce this out and then do a bunch of variations. We'll come in tomorrow and have these as battery templates. And then we'll start making a song. Booyah!